Before you buy that diamond ring, do you remember how in 1991, Sierra Leone was engulfed in a civil war that would last for over a decade? 50,000 were estimated to have died. There were child soldiers, murders, torture. And 23 years later, Sierra Leone remains one of the least developed countries in the world. That civil war was financed and exacerbated by natural resources that could be easily smuggled and sold for millions on the global market. Diamonds. The diamond industry has exploded over the past century. Diamonds flowed first from Africa, later from Russia, and then Canada and Australia. And while such natural resources can bring wealth, research suggests it actually leads to an overdependence on those resources, exacerbating poverty rather than alleviating it. Like in Sierra Leone, Russia, which is the world's largest diamond producer, profits immensely from its natural resources. And those profits go to financing war and conflict while also exploiting the indigenous communities in Siberia. When blood diamonds led to several crises across Africa, the UN passed Resolution 1459 to break the link between the illicit trade in rough diamonds and armed conflicts that affect international peace and security. It adopted the Kimberley Process, a certification mechanism to safeguard the market against the circulation of blood diamonds. Members can only trade with fellow abiding members. The chairmanship rotates annually. Currently, it is chaired by the United Arab Emirates. Keep that in mind for later. Going into the late aughts, it seemed work and consumer confidence returned.
See the impact of natural diamonds in other places in the world.
Celebrities like Lily James appeared in ads, awkwardly shoehorning terms in like responsible in an effort to shed the industry's reputation.
Natural diamonds are real, rare, responsible.
The Kimberley Process was established to address systemic issues, primarily on the African continent where warlords and rebel groups were operating freely outside the scope of the government. It was not constructed for a scenario where the warlord was itself a state, especially not a UN Security Council member. The Kyiv Independent's mission has been to bring these types of stories to light. We are reader-funded, so your support is essential to bringing news from Ukraine to the world. Visit the link in the description below to find out how. Russia's most significant diamond reserves are located in the Sakha Republic, also known as Yakutia, Russia's largest republic, situated in its far east. It's home to the Sakha, or Yakuts, an indigenous group colonized by the Russian Empire in the 17th century that currently comprises the region's ethnic majority. Despite having a similar GDP per capita as Moscow, the Sakha people remain some of Russia's poorest inhabitants. The Kremlin has taken advantage of this, disproportionately mobilizing men from the region for its war and enticing recruits with salaries up to 4.5 times the regional average. So to be clear, these men are kept poor to enrich Moscow and then are given the opportunity to make some money if they risk dying at war. Just consider that. Prior to the war, the Sakha Republic was responsible for 90% of Russia's diamond production and up to a third of the world's supply. That's worth a lot. And while Russia allocates 40% of its budget to military spending, they are increasingly relying on these exports. Diamonds generate immense revenue for the Russian government, which holds a majority share in the country's leading diamond producer, Alrosa. Exploitation, coercion, war. In other words, these are blood diamonds. But to tackle this issue, it requires addressing both sides of the problem. The supply, in this case being Russia, but also the demand. The United States and other Western countries comprise at least 70% of global diamond consumption. The G7 nations and the EU have incrementally sanctioned Alrosa and other Russian suppliers over the past 2.5 years to hinder Russia's war effort. And luxury brands like Tiffany and Cartier claimed to have stopped buying Russian diamonds in response to the full-scale invasion. But to do any of this, a diamond's origin needs to be clearly and reliably documented. And this is where we run into a setback. How do they know? To understand this, first we need to make it clear what a diamond actually is.
А алмаз він використовується як такий негранований мінерал, і природний. Ну, зазвичай діаманти називають гранований алмаз. Алмаз – це rough diamond, це сирий необроблений мінерал. Це кристалічна форма чистого вуглеця. Це зазвичай тому, що надзвичайна твердість, надзвичайна прозорість. І тому вони в світі і коштовні.
From the rough, the diamonds are traded, cut, and polished before arriving on the market. The first step is shipping these roughs to a trading post, like this one in Belgium. Over 80% of rough diamonds pass through Antwerp, a historically important trading hub, and it is where half of the world's Kimberley certifications are issued. Although the Belgian government publicly supports a ban on Russian diamonds, behind the scenes, many lobbyists have slow-rolled these efforts. Local industry representatives claimed a ban on Russian imports could cut business by 30% and empower rival trading posts abroad that have no issues with Russians or their diamonds. The CEO of the Antwerp World Diamond Center, which represents the Belgian diamond trade, even resigned after 13 years over the conflict such sanctions provoked between his organization and the Belgian government. Still, broad sanctions began to make business with Russia toxic. And yet, take a look at this chart. Alrosa's sales grew throughout 2022 and 2023 after the full-scale invasion, after sanctions, despite doors to the West closing. So why is this happening? How did their sales grow when 70% of the market was out of reach? Despite being members of the Kimberley Process, countries like China, Belarus, and the Central African Republic have blocked efforts to label Russia a producer of blood diamonds. Remember how I said this guy would become relevant later? Well, since its inception, the Kimberley Process has been chaired by Russia or one of its allies for much of its 20-year existence. The UAE, which currently chairs the Kimberley organization, has maintained ties with Russia. And previously, under Botswana's chairmanship, it refused to hold discussions on recategorizing Russian diamonds after the invasion of Ukraine. Russia has also accused the West of attempting to block Belarus from taking the chair in 2025. The geopolitics at play between these countries, which was an asset in confronting domestic cartels and unsanctioned militias, makes it more challenging to use the Kimberley Process in the context of Russia. And so, without repercussions for Russia, it leaves Moscow ample wiggle room to finance its war on the foreign markets. And not just friendly countries like China. They have a few paths to do this. One path is for Russia to send its rough, uncut diamonds to the city of Surat in India, a member country of BRICS. Once there, the roughs are cut and polished, alongside 90% of the world's diamonds. This process, once complete, no longer considers Russia to be its source, not just in writing, but molecularly, because some experts are skeptical that science can be used to determine a diamond's origin.
Наразі не існує впевнених методів наукових визначення походження діаманта з країни видобування. Чому? Тому що діамант – це мінерал, який однородний за своєю структурою. Це вуглець. Є там домішки, є домішки азоту, ще які домішки, але в основному це вуглець. І він однаковий, що він в Південній Африці, що в Якутії.
Another option is through intermediaries in Dubai. Experts refer to Dubai in the UAE as a laundromat for the diamond industry. Russian diamonds get commingled in with other countries and sold as mixed goods, making it nearly impossible to trace an individual diamond's origins. Without a mechanism to indisputably trace a diamond from mine to consumer, almost any effort to eradicate conflict diamonds globally, either from Russia or elsewhere, is nearly impossible. But a solution may be coming. At the beginning of 2024, the EU and G7 took a step forward, not only requiring diamonds entering the European market to be certified in Antwerp, protecting Belgium's local economy, but also requiring a blockchain protocol to track and verify diamonds' origins. One company, De Beers, has been developing such a system for years now, known as Tracer, in order to protect consumers against fakes or blood diamonds. These digital ledgers create an end-to-end chain of custody, like a digital passport. The diamond's physical characteristics and other details would be embedded in the data. However, there has been frustration and obstacles in implementing this on a global scale. And in June, the EU postponed this mandate until March of 2025, and it's likely to take longer before the system is ironclad and operational. Blockchain is difficult to manipulate because, simply speaking, it is a decentralized ledger with the data in the chain needing to match across all parties. But the blockchain in this case is only as reliable as the information initially inputted into it. Diamond mining is not digital, it's analog. There's no metadata embedded into its code. How do we know a rough diamond is what it says it is? According to Tracer, the producers must meet recognized ethical standards and must declare the origins at the point of scanning. And yet, diamond smuggling has been a persistent dilemma for the Kimberley Process. When the Central African Republic was suspended for 2 years in 2013, the UN estimated $24 million worth of diamonds were smuggled abroad in that brief window. There's also several cases of fraudulent Kimberley certificates allowing diamonds to skirt import safeguards. So there's a concern about how to make sanctions against Russia actually effective and not just a logistical inconvenience, especially when Russia has numerous investments in Africa. Like in Central Africa, where Russia's Wagner paramilitary group, using a shell company, has violently coerced ownership from the local diamond dealers. Or in Zimbabwe, where Alrosa has operations and whose president openly supports Russia's war in Ukraine.
Zimbabwe is in solidarity with the Russian Federation in your country's special military operation in the Ukraine.
Or in Angola, where Alrosa owns a 41% stake in the country's largest mining company, which includes the world's fourth largest diamond mine. But there is some good news. For one, Alrosa's sales have started collapsing this year as the market likely prepares for stricter regulations. Secondly, Angola recently announced that it had severed ties with Alrosa in an effort to distance itself from Russia due to sanctions. The global diamond industry is a complex, interconnected web in which efforts to control it require even more complex solutions. And any action has global ramifications. Russia's war in Ukraine has led to severe consequences throughout this entire network. In Surat, diamond exports dropped from $23 to $12 million since the start of the war, leading to the loss of 30,000 jobs in the first half of this year. UAE's role in laundering Russian diamonds has strained its relations with the West. In Antwerp, the diamond industry is in potential turmoil over the global divide sanctions have caused. Meanwhile, Russia is taking advantage of the economic conditions its war has created by recruiting from vulnerable communities, like its own Sakha Republic, as well as from India, the Central African Republic, Congo, Sierra Leone, and more. There's no easy solution to untangle this web. But what can you do? Research among jewelers suggests consumers rarely inquire about the country of origin. As you consider your holiday shopping, you can choose not to participate. Ask your jewelers where their diamonds are from, keeping in mind where these conflict diamonds might be laundered. Or maybe even consider lab-grown diamonds, which by their nature are conflict-free. They're also significantly less expensive. Something to consider this holiday season. If you want to support our independent journalism, check the description below for how you can become a member of the Kyiv Independent. Your membership helps us continue to connect Ukraine with the world.